about a P&L by the one and only Christopher Bradford today. And so hopefully they're going to get here. Welcome to team meeting. Who can believe that it is April 15th already? You can believe it?
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Did you pay your taxes? Who pays their taxes on time? Okay, good. Who schedules an extension? And then their accountant still calls in on October 1st and says, you do know you have to pay taxes this year, right? And I say, oh yes, that is true. And then he said to me, you know, you just went from one extreme to the other. He goes, you were one of my only realtors that didn't file extensions ever. And then about 3 years ago, I had to file an extension. And he goes, and you just like went to the extreme of, I'm just not going to pay him till the absolute last minute. And I said, well, here we are. I think
I can do two things at once.
bucket fills. Who wants to fill the bucket? That's Heidi Klum. She's so cute. Who's got a bucket to fill today?
I have a bucket filled.
Dylan, let's hear it.
I'd like to fill Jason's bucket. Jason has partaken in a social media campaign to improve his social media presence. And within the last month, he's grown his following from about 300 to just shy of 1,000.
Nice.
He's massively impressed his following.
That's awesome. I have seen you way more on my feed. Good job. Love it. Who else? Bucket fills. Bucket fills. Bucket fills. Anybody?
Just thanks to everyone for the Easter event.
Event.
Awesome. It's always
such a
a
good event.
good one.
Yeah. But yes, huge thank you to everyone who participated in that. There is a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes on those events. So thank you for pointing out that. That's amazing. Sean, were you raising your hand back there?
Yeah, so I like to do open houses for me, and I love the fact that there's a handful of people in the room that have done open houses for me and continue to do so. So thanks to you guys.
Love it.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Bucket fills? I'm gonna fill Dalton's bucket. I know we filled this a few times with Conversation Mastery, but for those of you that don't know, listen, I'm just gonna warn you guys, don't ever sit in this room and have a conversation about me, because I actually will hear you, because it's almost like you're sitting in the room with me. But this morning I got the pleasure of listening into some script practice, and I just wanna fill Dalton's bucket because I know that this is your kind of passion project that he kind of said, hey, I'm working on some of these things myself, so I'd like to just help other people do it. Dalton's doing this of his own free time and will. And it was fun to hear the conversations this morning, and I hear them improve, and I hear you guys work through sometimes clunkiness that happens when you're script practicing. So Dalton, thank you for the conversation mastery.
Thank you to the people that are coming. Because I talked to Jesse last week and I'm like, what if Dalton had your personality?
Don't
And
say
she
that.
said he would be unstoppable. And hold on, it gets better. It gets so much better. Dalton taller.
I like click that just out instantly.
It wasn't such a, there's a purpose to this. Okay.
Do it quickly, because you're losing the
What I'm
audience.
saying is, grit and like dedication and role play and script practice trumps talent every single time.
What about personality?
And
If it's around personality,
that's
Only go so far.
that's why Dalton is so successful. That's why he's in the top 250. That's why, because he works hard at his skill, and anybody that's willing to work hard at their skill and
And he has a great personality, so he's the total package. It's what Tim was back around to.
wow. Anybody that wants to actually actively grow their business, you do the hard things that Dalton does.
so if you have a shitty personality, join me at script practice. We can overcome it.
Get before next week, because I actually am gonna get an electronic gag that, like, if I push a button, it instantly just goes, it makes it stop. So what I think Tim meant to say there is you're wildly successful because you have such a great personality and grit to back. Great job. So pure.
I think you're trying to say you have great work.
Bucket bills. Okay. Moving along. This is not working the way we wanted it to because our sound is not. Did you just add that?
Nope, there's already added.
It's not playing though. The little you can't hear it either.
Is that what was like background or is that pure coincidence?
Wow. So for those of you that don't know, Lauren has taken a different opportunity outside of the real estate world.
Which she's gonna be sorry for.
Right.
We're gonna be really happy.
Anyway, it was a great move for her. We're excited for her.
Or we.
You wanna click on-
Or just go to the next.
Pick what? Yeah, so anyway, this is a song singing, Goodbye, My Lover, I believe is the song that's playing. And then we want to welcome Vincy. Okay. Has a song that is triumphant. So just imagine, you know, a triumphant band playing. And I will, because I'm just gonna throw myself under the bus. Bradley had something that he felt was very funny, which was basically a obituary type picture of Lauren with the Amazing Grace playing, and I said, absolutely not. Steve and Chris, I've actually worked with Chris for 5 years, 6 years. I've worked with Bradley for about a year now, and I've never seen the two of them laugh as hard as they did in creating that slide. So I apologize that I did not share in the fun with it. Okay, wants and needs, let's talk about them. So anyway, Lauren is gone. You'll still be able to reach Vincy, who's our agent services coordinator, through the same phone number and email that you had. It still is the same. We're in good hands, and we wish Lauren the best. Wants and needs, who's got some listings? Today, because it feels like the right thing to do. Not everybody at once. Okay, Christy.
So we have our West Haven, it's 525, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths.
525, did you say?
525, yes, it's subject to third party approval.
West Haven?
Full disclosure, there is a ton of stuff in there that could be your buyer's responsibility to remove.
Oh, could you get a bonus?
You get a bonus.
4-2.
It is a 4.2.5. Or 2.5. Okay. Built in 2021, 3-car garage, let's see, 3-car garage.
The house itself is.
Yeah, house itself is great, but there's just a ton of stuff.
You just have to look past.
You have to have this-
Items included at no additional charge.
Yeah, might be a treasure. And then, we have 78 acres of land coming up in the Monte Cristo area. That will be hitting the market soon. I just don't know when, and I do 125. I do not know a price yet. Bring your own price.
Oh, it's like 125,000.
Oh.
Justin's bringing his own
I'll
price.
do that.
I think it might not be accurate.
I will have pricing soon.
This
yeah.
is a bring your own price.
You could build up there if you wanted to.
Shania, I was gonna say.
Yeah, it has a well on property, it has improvements at the road. But it's gonna be a cost to get, you know, but yeah, they have, there's.
Okay, so it is cabin approved.
If I can get it for 125, Kristen, next week, you'll be on my shout outs.
Okay.
Are they doing?
I'll give them to
You'll have great
We can
percent.
find out.
Yeah, find out. Those aren't easy to finance, just stand up.
I'll find out, yeah.
Well. Sean?
I don't have 70 something acres. I have a little tiny lot in East Layton. The price is gonna be $265. And it's right, I can't remember the name of the subdivision. That's how it, or subdivision in East Layton.
It's a lot. Yes.
That's a lot. Yeah, 265, and it's actually priced really well for the neighborhood that it's in.
What size of the lot?
I was trying to pull it up and I couldn't pull it up quick enough, but it's like it's right around, it's a little over a quarter if I recall.
Will they allow a barn in there?
I don't know what I don't know if they wouldn't, because a lot of the homes around there were built a long time ago and then they've all been redone since.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say whatever originally CCNRs are probably not being enforced.
Okay.
It's surrounded by, there's a lot of, well, you guys know that area, you have $1 million home next to one that's happening.
Love it. Anything else?
We have one in Roy, 4-bed, 2-bath, 435. We do have a solar that will need to be assumed, 50,000. And there's a really cool tree house back there.
$50,000 solar system.
I was quoted 70.
Steph, can I share this a little bit with the?
Yes, it's office exclusive until the 29th as well.
Guys, this is a really good conversation to have. Stephanie and I had a conversation on this and she wishes they would have talked about the solar panels before, based on the time they've been in house since they installed solar panels. Talk to your clients, make sure they understand what that looks like. Because solar companies sometimes tell them something different, which is that they can increase the price to cover it and all these other things. Just make sure you're having really good conversations with your clients about what that might look like in a situation that they can't stay there quite as long as they thought, okay? Anyone else upcoming listing? Bradley?
Barry's got one in South Weaver. It's 475. A patio home, 3-bed, 2-bath, 2-car garage. $40 HOA per month. It covers roads being plowed, grass, common areas. And it's connected by a 6-foot gate to a 3-acre park.
And that is a really cute house. Shout out to Sherry on that one.
Really cute or super?
It's super cute.
Super cute, you heard it here first. Steph gave it the super cute stamp of approval.
Then she also had the 375 in Ogden. It's 3-bed, 1-bath, 1-car garage.
Okay, awesome.
And then Larson Realty Group has a listing in Bountiful. It's 590, 4-bed, 2-bath. And it's got a huge shop in the back.
Huge. Call your shop people. This is like, everybody's always like, I need one with a big shop. They don't care about the house. So this is a good, again, like sometimes it's you knowing, remember those board conversations, family, occupation, recreation, and dreams? If you're having good conversations, you might know someone who has said, oh, I would move if I had a house with a giant shop. Now you can call and say, hey, I have a house with a giant shop. I know that's something you've been interested in. Okay, anything else? Okay, awesome. This-
is a big shop, Alex.
Yeah,
Okay.
Larson Realty Group has it. Tuesday, we have, that's today, guys. We have our tech bar from 1:30 to 2:30. Bradley, what can you tell us about tech bar?
Bring any questions you have about command, AI, your computer, how to log in, things like that.
Anything you need help with technology wise? What'd you say, Dalton? A little louder? You know what, I think Bradley can help you with that.
I think so, yeah. Bradley's a well-traveled life guy, yeah.
So anyway, think of like, you're sitting there and you're like, man, I wish I knew how to do this. That is what Tuesday's tech bar is for. Bring your laptop, come with anything you have questions on. Wednesday, we have contracts with DocuSign with Sean and Allison from 2:30 to 4. You're gonna go over the contract itself and putting it in DocuSign and how to do this more effectively. Fun fact, if you are not currently using DocuSign in a way that when you go to fill your documents out, all of the little places that the seller needs to sign are templated, you're doing it harder than you need to. So they're gonna give you some fun little tips and tricks on how to have DocuSign work more efficiently for you. Thursday, we have grabbing client attention with command from 11 to 12. And then Thursday night, there is free line dancing classes at the Outlaw Saloon from 7 to 9. Jessica Oots, is the one that's kind of heading this up. So all, ability levels are welcome. If you're a man, you can't wear a white tank top, but anything else goes, right? I think that's the only rule. And so, yeah, that's, if anybody wants to join, that's this Thursday. Christy, are you going this Thursday?
I am not going this Thursday because my son-in-law is getting a major award at the first.
A major award?
major
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the medical program and is like the top class, so they are giving him like a really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And he's gonna be teaching a class this summer because of it, so, yeah,
I
so
love it.
I will be there.
Okay, well, anybody who wants to go line dancing, Thursday, Outlaw Saloon, it is a 21 and older, so bring your identification. And then Friday, who's planning to participate in the clothing swap? Who's gonna bring some stuff to shop a little? Bradley, Claudia, Steph, Jesse, Kate.
Who has
Awesome.
no idea what clothing swap is?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what clothing swap is. So I think there's a slide. Swap, don't shop. One of the things we've talked about is sometimes we just wanna shop each other's closets because we all have stuff in our closet that we just don't love or it doesn't fit right or whatever. And then you think of somebody else in there like, that'd be so cute on them. So this is just anything that you're not gonna wear anymore. You just don't like the way it fits, whatever it is, you just have a abundance, Justin. I already feel like I know where this conversation's going.
Feel like there's not
Absolutely.
anyone here that would be with my.
Your style.
Let me add to that, just bring your children's clothes and it might fit.
Well, Justin, some people buy pants that are too long or whatever. And
That would be
so
me. I'll bring my long.
just
You can have that.
bring, if you have stuff you wanna swap, bring it. It's just a fun way to switch up your. KW Crew Golf Day, if you want to, you know, some of us had a lot of fun doing this last year because we, okay, all ability levels are welcome. If you have golfed before, great. If you haven't, that's okay too. We'll partner you up with people, but if you're interested in golfing, you need to let Alex know immediately because I think she's finalizing the golf teams now. This one is gonna be at the barn at 3 p.m. on the 18th, which is Friday, okay? Quarterly market update or market update Q1, please scan the QR code if you're planning to attend this. It is 2 hours, notice a little extended time. It's here in the office. If you have a friend you want to bring to this is always phenomenal information. You're not going to want to miss it. Especially, I feel like it is more critical than ever that we are up to date on what's going on in the market.
I think we offer a challenge, if anyone that can bring a friend.
Anybody who brings a friend, we will do a drawing for.
Drawing, yes.
Bring a friend for lunch with Tim.
Want to be my friend?
He brings all the compliments, so Dalton, you're gonna wanna really double up
I'll
on
be
this.
there. Yep.
Dalton, I'm gonna buy you lunch.
Okay, bites and insights. This one is April 23rd, so it's the day after the quarterly market update. It is lead generation reimagined. So we're gonna have a panel. We're gonna talk a lot about different ways of lead generating, or also what are you doing to lead generate and how can you maybe elevate that to a next level? This is a question we get a lot. So bites and insights. As you guys know, we usually have a panel of experts and then we also give you time to share your ideas. Paint the Town Red is our open house extravaganza. So this week coming up, so next week, if you want to participate in Paint the Town Red, please scan this QR code. There's gonna have classes every day leading up to your open house. If you have a house that you already have that you have listed that you want to hold open, great. We're gonna teach you all the ways to market and have a successful open house. If you do not have a listing and you want to hold an open house, please again, scan this and we will find a home for you to hold open. Next, the week after the 22nd, so the last team meeting of the month, we have a special treat. Claudia is gonna teach her class, which is a friend in 5 minutes, a client for life. So generate a client base that refers their friends and never leaves with Claudia Welch, creating some raving fans here. Scan the QR code so we know how many of you want to come to that. And if you've had any conversation at all with Claudia, you know that she is an expert at just making
Unless you're
people feel
Justin.
seen and loved, unless you're a bully. Then maybe you're not.
That's right.
Freaking signing up for the damn class.
He's not gonna be a friend.
You're like my big brother.
Yours are gonna bug it out in a minute. Sean, do you wanna talk about this?
Yeah.
Talk about it.
This is, we call it beach cleanup, but it's really not just the beaches. For anyone who recreates up in Ogden Valley, we're cleaning up all the trailheads as well as going around the entire beach. This is done in conjunction with the Forest Service and the DNR, Division of Natural Resources. They have certain rules where they can only be vehicles on the beach, things like that. So we have to do it in conjunction with them, but we sponsor it. We meet at around 9:45. We start at 10. We only go for about 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours. We meet back at the clubhouse and then we provide pizza and drinks. So come help. We typically try to get around 300 people there. So that's a lot of people for Little Ogden Valley.
That's a lot of networking. That's
a
a
lot
lot
of
of good
networking.
helping with the
Absolutely.
community and making
So
friends and
please come help.
areas that we use beautiful.
Yep.
Okay, love it. KW Utah, so after, who went to the AI Summit with Shoni? Okay, awesome. Who has started implementing some things into their business already? So I have to, one of the things that became just apparent that we needed to do is a little bit more of ongoing education for this. So Friday, May 9th, from 11 to 12:15, it is going to be how to build a full month of professional marketing in under 30 minutes, ways to position yourself as a clear market expert consistently, and a simple framework to shift from reactive content to purposeful strategy. That is going to be what is covered. This is going to be hands-on. It is virtual and it is not recorded. So you can zoom it in your jammies.
Can I add to this? This is, like, we got so much information at the summit. That this is actually going to go step by step of how to put it to work. So they're gonna actually go into the step process of how to actually begin the process. So this will be super effective.
Anyway, scan the little QR if you want it. Our summer event this year, we decided to switch things for our Red Bash Up, and we're doing surf and swim. This has been a much requested for a hot minute for people to do a swim party and surf for surf and swim instead of a party in the park. So our Red Bash client event, you need to sign up before April 29th. You're going to scan here to sign up to get all the details. It is going to be June 12th from 7 to 10 p.m. So if you want to participate in Red Bash in this year's client event, please scan the QR code for info to come. Red Day, we have a goal of 1,000 pantry packs. Who can tell me what Red Day is? We talked about it last week. Who can tell me about it? What is Red Day? Dylan.
Making food for children that potentially do not have food to come home to. So students will leave on Friday with these little pantry packs that have meals in them. And then little positive affirmations as well. And they'll have food for the weekend.
Yeah, this little bag of food right here gives them enough food for Saturday and Sunday when they go home hungry. And we are doing this in conjunction with the Bountiful Food Pantry, right? Bountiful Food Pantry. These little packs cost about $3.50 each. We want to raise for 1,000 of them. You guys, we made a big dent in this at the Easter event of over $2,000 already. So I feel like we should be able to exceed this goal, which is huge. So big thank you to everyone who donated at that. Every single Keller Williams across the country will be shutting down their offices for business this day and giving back in their community. So this will be our Red Day event this year. Great way to get your clients involved. Make sure you're talking about it. Really quickly, if you are collecting donations from your clients, just have them pay you directly. They'll Venmo you or whatever, and then whatever the total you collect is, you can just tell Chris and he can charge your card on file at the office. You can bring a check into the office or whatever. So if I'm collecting for my clients and I raise $500, I'm going to tell Chris, he's going to charge me for it because as an office, we have to just take them one donation check. Our pack roundup, Christy just told me, is the exact same day as our AI Summit, which is kind of a bummer. Our pack is a super critical, stands for Realtor Political Action Committee. And the first thing that anybody who's not sure about our pack says when they hear political is, I'm not political, I'm not in politics. You're in real estate, you need to be in politics. You need to understand what happens. You need to understand why we need ownership friendly legislation, why affordable housing is important, why all of these pieces fall into play, why personal property right officials, it's important that they get elected. All of those things affect you and how well you can do your job. The RPAC roundup is a Western theme this year, which you guys know me and I love a good theme. So I'm super excited to go and support this. The Moore Club event, which those of you that are in the Moore Club, the Masters of Real Estate, we're actually having Kate Lucht, who is the government affairs director for the state of Utah, is going to come and speak to you about the importance of RPAC and just the legislation that's passed, what's happening that affects you. It does affect you. And you need to know about it because people are hearing about it. You need to be able to speak to it. And then also that Moore Club event is going to have UDOT updates. So you should have received an email from Bradley. If not, you will shortly. Make sure that you RSVP for that. But this is a really critical event for you to attend as well. When you scan the QR code, it's gonna take you to a website of sorts that will be like a fundraising website. As the things you can bid on get uploaded, those will all be in that page too. Even if you can't attend the event in person, there are some of the items that you can still bid on. So you can still download the app and make a donation that way. It's super critical. Mega Agent Camp surprise! They actually extended tier 1 pricing, I believe until the end of May. So you've got a little bit more time. Here's what I'm going to tell you about that though. If you're planning to go, just make the commitment and buy the ticket. I never get busier than when I plan a trip or when I already have something in my schedule and then I'm like, oh crap, I have to do that. The other thing with planning it now is the rooms are based on how many ticket sales that they make, the discounted rooms. And once the discounted rooms are gone, they're gone. So if you have a particular hotel you want to stay in, or you want to stay in a hotel that's close to the convention center, it is in San Antonio this year, not in Austin, Texas. It's the first time in many, many years it has not been in Austin. So make sure you scan. Tier 1 pricing is $1,000 right now. It will go up to $1,299 at the end of May. But again, hotel availability to me is one of the biggest reasons that you want to buy your ticket in advance. You can't unlock the discount hotel pricing unless you have a ticket purchased, okay? Make sure you're making all your calls in a TCPA friendly and compliant way. And then we have my friend Andrea from Amicus Title. She's going to give us a title tip on how to have a smoother transaction. So welcome, please.
Okay, hi, everybody. I chose the title tip based on a trust. So this has to do if you have a listing that's vested in a trust. Who's had one of those? Okay, so you might know what I'm going to tell you about. What I see often is because it's an entity other than the individual, money at closing has to go into that account. And so that we're all on the same team and everything runs smoothly, I'll let them know, but if you can let them know up front, they need to get that account set up. That can be super helpful because oftentimes we'll get to closing and it's funny how many times that's forgotten, especially say if a successor trustee is dealing with maybe parents have passed away, they're dealing with selling the house. You know, this is now we're a couple parties deep into the trust and there's so much that they're handling. It can be something that's forgotten and at the end and they're ready for their money and they're ready to be done with the process. They don't want to have to go set up an account. I've also had people where they're just of an age where it seems like a difficult process and they don't know how to do it. And I can walk them through that. I can answer their questions. It usually doesn't happen with an LLC because money's going in and out of that business account. So it's already set up. But often when an attorney is setting up a trust, they don't tell you to go set up an account at the bank. And so that's usually something in the process that either you or I will have to tell them. And my biggest job is to make you look good. And so I want things to go smooth because that way that helps us both in our business. And so, again, I'll be there to remind them, but depending on how much is happening in the transaction, if you can be on top of that, it makes a big difference. I'll also need to collect docs with the trust. But other than that, any questions on that?
Does anyone
It's pretty
actually have that
basic.
happen? I have. And I was like, make sure you bring the right bank account for your trust. Like I even said that in that way, just assuming that they already have the account set up. And then they like get the account information and it was like, oh, well, this isn't the right, you have to have it with the name on the trust and they did not know. So it held them getting their money by like 3 or 4 days because it's on Friday.
And if they can't, yeah.
It was like, took them a minute to get everything ready to be able to set up the account with the trust, so.
And if multiple successor trustees are all involved, then it becomes a headache and we just don't want that right away.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Awesome, thank you. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Except this won't switch. Fine. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for. The one, the only, fighting out of the south corner. So ready to teach us all the things. Put your together. It's all yours.
What's your favorite thing that's embarrassed me? You want to know?
Embarrassing?
I was gonna start with a joke, but I've watched Tim week after week bomb with his joke. So I have some podcasts. You guys are okay with that. Love you, Tim.
Yeah, Dalton, you're not alone. I have a winning personality, let's just.
How many of you as a kid, had a little allowance of some kind? Anybody? Some of you? Yeah, very little. Anybody ever have an experience where you got your little allowance and you got all excited and went out and maybe you blew it all on candy or something, and then within a day or two, it was like there was something else you wanted and oops. Yeah, I mean, that's a real scenario, right? You know, you're a little kid, you're trying to learn how to manage your money and it's like, well, but I want to go to the movie with my friend. You know, sort of sucks to be you, right? Your money's gone. It doesn't work that way. What is that child learning in that scenario?
A budget.
A budget? How to manage money,
Red light, green light.
right? Can't always have what you want. Yeah, money's just not always available,
They
right?
start wishing that their parents had a big giant trust fund for them.
Right.
Normally about that time,
How often does that work?
you're hoping for some strange old uncle to die that you never knew of.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So if we could advance that little child's example a whole bunch of years into the future, right? And now you're a big time real estate agent, okay? And you're trying to figure out how to grow your business and manage your business. And if you make some money real fast, now I've just got this great commission check. And oh, I really want a new car. Right? We go out and we spend our money. And next week, I really want to invest in my business. Oops, right? That's a crazy example, except that it happens. Right? Anybody know somebody who's done that before? Right? Right? What about, I made all this money and now it's April 15th. Anybody ever had that problem? Yeah. Anybody know anybody who has made a statement like this? I made a couple $100,000 last year. Where is it? Where did it all go? Right? And they're sort of looking around. So this is a true story. My first year here, after tax season and after sort of all of the 1099s were out and everything, I had an agent walk in my office. It's like, this is wrong. This is wrong. Okay, well, let's take a look. We looked. It was right. And the number was well over $300,000. And the answer to me, the question to me was, where's all my money? That was an unfortunate conversation. Yeah, that was an unfortunate conversation. So why do we have P&Ls? Let's talk about what is a P&L. What is a P&L? Profit and loss, right? Certainly it does, there's more to it. What other kinds of things could we say that it does for us or that it is? It's a money tracker.
Where the money's going.
Okay. Where the money's going, right?
Expense ledger.
Do we think this is actually working?
Yes.
Okay. So a profit and loss, a P&L statement, also known as an income statement, is a financial summary that shows a company's income, their cost of sales, expenses, and ultimately its profit or losses, and this is really important, over a specific period of time, right? So P&L is not an open-ended document. It's something that measures a window of time, okay? What kind of windows of time do we measure with a P&L?
Usually.
We hear a lot about like an annual P&L, right? Companies will offer up at the end of the year like an annual report. You might see a P&L in that document. And it's basically indicating, oh, okay, well, let's talk about what our income was. Let's talk about what our expenses were. And in big buckets, right? Let's talk about what our income was after that. Rusty mentioned an interesting word, a budget. Is a P&L a budget?
No.
Not the same thing, right? Right? So what's a budget versus a P&L?
budget is what you expect to bring in and what you expect to spend. A profit and loss is what you actually brought in and what you actually spent.
Do you want to come teach this? That was absolutely.
I would love it.
My heart just softened, yeah. That's absolutely right. So a budget we do before that period of time, correct? So if I'm approaching a new year and I want to know what I should do to make money for the next year, I prepare a budget. And then all through that next year, I work really hard to stay within that budget, to manage my business according to that budget. But at certain intervals, I have to know, I have to be able to decide if I'm actually complying with and doing what I said I was going to do, right? And so a P&L is a way that we do that. Here at Keller Williams, we actually generate a P&L every single month. Does anybody know why we do that? Okay, we report to corporate. But what's one of the things that we do after every month when we know we've made some profit? We profit share, right? So that's why we do that every month. That's why at the end of every month and sort of the first few days of the next month, I close my door, right? That's why I'm just like, I'm not super available, right? Because we're closing out the month and we're getting everything sort of tabulated and we're getting set up for the next month. And that's sort of that month-end process. We're generating a P&L. Lots of companies will have like quarterly calls, right? Quarterly calls is basically they're reporting their profits over a specific period of time. So as a real estate agent, how often would it make sense to generate a P&L? What do you guys think? Why monthly?
Because it helps you 12 times a year understand where you're at financially,
Yeah,
whether you're doing the right activities in order to achieve the financial goals you want.
yeah, exactly.
It's a check and balance.
Yeah, if you wait the whole year, right? There's nothing you can do in the month of April anymore if it's the next January, right? So a P&L helps us make decisions. So let's talk for a minute about why you need a P&L, and this is sort of my thoughts on it. A P&L, profit and loss statement, is crucial for small business owners as it provides a clear snapshot of their business's financial performance, highlighting revenue, expenses, ultimately profitability, which helps in making informed decisions for growth and sustainability. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to just jump and take a hard look at the major components of a P&L. Is everybody willing to do sort of an exercise as we go through this? Everybody should be nodding. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to hand out a very, very basic P&L worksheet. And again, for some of you, this might just be like, okay, done this, been there, done it. You know, for others, it might be like, oh, it's really easy. You know, that's sort of what we're hoping for. So let's take a look at some of the major components of a P&L. And while Bradley's passing these out, yep, everybody's going to need a pen.
Does anybody else need a real pen?
Yep. Give it just a second. Let me ask you a question real quick. And I guess you don't have to answer if you don't want, but does anybody here run a P&L on a frequent basis? Okay. Got some good hands up. I love that. Steph's in the back grinning. Steph and I work together sometimes on this, so.
Thumbs up high if you need a real pen. Anybody else? Okay.
Okay, so let's start with income, okay? What is income in a real estate agent's life?
Commission.
Commission, right? What types of commissions?
Referral fees and.
Yeah. Anything that you're earning off of a transaction that we're paying you as an office, right? Comes from your efforts and energy as a real estate agent, considered a commission, right? And those come from listing side transactions, they come from buy side transactions, they come from referrals. Those are the main areas that we as an office pay commissions on, right? So what I want you to do, is I want you under the income side. And you guys can do this based on real numbers. You can do it based on 2024. You can do it based on just the last month. You can just make up numbers as you go. But at the end of the day, I want everybody to sort of run a small little P&L here as we walk through this, okay? So under the income section, I want you to put sort of what your categories are, right? You've got these lines right here under the word income. So what are your categories? And then I want you to just sort of note what different commissions you've earned in those different categories and sum that up under your total on your total income. Now, as you guys are doing this, some of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, where in the world would I get that information? Like, I know I've closed some deals and I saw that somebody put money in my account, but beyond that, I don't really know anything about what my income looks like. So who knows what a DA is? Chrissy?
District attorney.
Yeah, it's a disbursement authorization. Yeah. So the disbursement authorization form is uploaded in the closed section of every one of your opportunities right before we pay you. Okay? So you're gonna look for the one that says paid DA. That's what you're looking for. And on that paid DA, now I'm not here to talk about DAs, but I'm just gonna tell you just briefly. On that paid DA, you're gonna see some different things outlined on there. One of which is a line that's gonna refer to like the agent income. Okay? And that's literally the exact amount that you got paid. Now, here's an important distinction. Here's an important thing to remember. What you want to put on a P&L for income isn't after expenses, it's before you pay that split with the market center, right? So if my gross income or if my gross commission on a particular transaction is $10,000, that's what I want to put on that. Okay? Okay. Gonna give everybody just a second, make a few notes. Dalton, we're waiting for you.
Move on.
Okay, another place to find income. Who knows what their multi-year trend report is? Okay, other than staff and Jesse. Claudia, what's?
Our AOC, I was gonna say, I get every ALC meeting.
Yeah.
It's just our numbers basically.
Yeah, yeah. And it tracks numbers for years back, right? And what kind of categories does it actually track? All kinds of categories. It tracks, or it tracks your gross commission income for one thing, but it tracks all of your closed transactions, tracks your volume.
The number of size.
Yep. So it's got amazing information in there, okay? Who knows where to find your multi-year trend report? Justin, Christopher. Well, that's definitely one source, and I'm always available to help you find your multi-year trend report. What's another way to find it?
KW to
Reports.
down to yeah.
Yep. Yep, I love it. I love it. So if that didn't totally make sense to you, please come find me because I would love to show you how to actually find your multi-year trend report. The multi-year trend report is updated approximately the 10th of every month for the prior window of time. Okay, for the prior period. Okay, so those are two really great places. Primarily, you might be looking on your multi-year trend report for the GCI column or your gross commission incomes. Okay. Okay, everybody has a number down for their income. Yep, who's feeling rich yet? Few hands. All right, so cost of sales. Cost of sales is the next big bucket on a P&L. And cost of sales, this is, I'm sort of, keep in mind, this is a P&L that's really specific for real estate agents, okay? So other P&Ls might have different metrics in here that they have to account for, but in your world as real estate agents, cost of sales is an important metric. And what does cost of sales actually mean? Yeah,
Cost only happens if you, actually, not all the time. It only happens if you have a sell,
correct.
or if you list. But I was saying actually, because if you fail to sell something, those cost pictures, those are still there.
They are still there. They are still there. But what's that?
So photos, for example, would be an expense.
An
not a cost.
expense, right, right. So, and we'll get to that section. But primarily, what happens when you pay a commission to us and you have not capped it?
Yeah, split.
There's a split, right? That's your contract with us. And that split only happens when you close a transaction, right? So we don't come knocking on your door every month and take money out of your bank account. What we do is, once you close a deal, we're taking a little bit of that as your contract with us, right? And then that caps at a certain point, okay? So a cost of sale number would be, for example, the money that you're paying towards we call it company dollar, or towards your cap here with the market center. Another one would be the royalty money that is a KWRI charge, right? So I want everybody to write down their cost of sales. Now, here's just a little quick math for you, okay? If your gross commission income exceeds $50,000 and your cap, your split is 70-30 and your cap is $15,000, which are standard numbers for our single agents here, right? If your GCI is $50,000, then you will have capped, meaning you will have paid at that point $15,000 in company dollar and $3,000 in royalty, right? So if you've got on your income line $100,000, your cost of sales is still only $18,000.
The other thing to think about with cost of sales, so like, I think that was Jenny's voice. Right?
It
Yeah,
was.
it was Jenny's voice. I was like, the other thing with cost of sales, just like she said, so if it occurs when you sell a property. So if you wait to buy your closing gifts once something closes, that, or only if something closes, that's a cost of sale. If you buy them in bulk at the beginning of the year, that's an expense, not a cost of sale.
Right.
If you pay your transaction coordinator upon closing of a property, then that's a cost of sale. If you pay your transaction coordinator monthly,
As a salary.
as a salary, then that's an expense. So
Yep.
that's cost of sale. Literally think of it as anything that's triggered by a property selling is your cost of sale.
So here's a little more of a description. Thank you, Rusty. That's perfect. So variable costs. So cost of sales fluctuate directly with production, right? If you're producing, you're paying. If you're not producing, you're not. Okay. Examples of cost of sales: company dollar, royalty, referrals paid out of any transaction. You've got a deal, you're paying someone 25% on a transaction. That's a cost. Also, listing and buyer specialist salaries. Now, in the MREA, it talks about like highly leveraged agents, right? That millionaire real estate agent. And part of the leverage is that they're hiring people who are listing and buyer specialists, but they're being paid out of the commissions that are being generated. So they get paid as transactions are closing. That's why that fits in that bucket. Okay, yeah.
I have a question. So, you know, our tax return. Keep track of those. And how is that helpful?
Sure. Well, we're gonna talk about that. I mean, again, we're just talking about the format and the structure of a P&L document. So we're gonna go from the beginning of it all the way through the end. And because these are part of the expense, this is part of what you're spending to achieve your net income. It's got to be factored into the equation. Yep. Okay. Okay. So has everybody put down some cost of sales? Okay. Hopefully we're still dealing with some positive numbers now, right? Okay. Dalton, you're laughing.
I'm in the red.
Okay. 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 So my next question real quick is, where do we find cost of sales? The answers look familiar. Yeah. So same place, right? So your DAs are going to tell you the company dollar that you've paid, the royalty that you've paid. A multi-year trend report is also going to give you that kind of information. Okay. Pretty basic so far, pretty straightforward, okay? So now we're gonna take a look at some advanced math. Okay, you guys have heard of subtraction, right? Okay, so income minus cost of sales equals gross profit. Okay? You want me to go through that formula again for Dalton?
Theoretically, based on the MREA, what percent of your commission should be cost of
30.
sales? Hey, get a gold star, Jim.
And we're gonna look at some of those numbers too, a little bit later on in this, thanks, Tim. So your income minus your cost of sales, which are variable based on the income that you're producing, is gonna generate, or is gonna equal your gross profit for you. Okay, so everybody just do that math real quick. So everybody should now have a gross profit dollar number. We good? And you look lost.
I do QuickBooks, so it's all automated.
So subtraction stuff.
It's automated.
It's automated. Thanks.
I don't have to think, I have to think the thing.
He's leveraged, bro.
I love that. I love that. All right, so expenses. The next major bucket that we're gonna talk about are expenses, okay? So we've had some conversation here around what are expenses and what aren't expenses. So if I pay company dollar out of my last transaction, is that an expense?
Cost of sale.
That's a cost of sales, right? Okay. If I pay for closing gifts in January and I buy enough for the year, is that a cost of sales or is that an expense? It's an expense, right? Okay, so if it's not directly related to the transaction that you've closed, then we're gonna just, in very general terms, we're gonna call that an expense. Okay, keep in mind that these P&Ls can get exceedingly complex. We're bringing this to a level that is, I think, very understandable and very easy to manage. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about expenses. Expenses are fixed costs, right? They remain constant regardless of production. Examples of expenses. Any of those look familiar? Yeah. Anybody ever spent any money on those? Yeah, a little bit here and there. Okay. So salaries, again, these are not commissions that we're paying to people we've hired to generate sales. These are salaries that we're paying to people who literally day in and day out are doing work for you that you're paying like on a monthly basis. Okay. So lead gen, rent, technology, phone, supplies, education, equipment, auto insurance, professional services. There's certainly a long list. Now, here is a big tough question. How in the world do we track expenses? This is probably the #1 place that people struggle with building this out, with managing this, right? Because everything you're doing day in and day out that is exchanging money in your world as a real estate agent needs to be managed. You need to actually track and know what you're doing with that money. Okay, so ways that we track expenses. Well, I'm a spreadsheet guy, so naturally for me, I would have a spreadsheet. That would just be like speaking my language. That would be so easy for me. That may not be everybody's thing, right? Sometimes we can see money that we've spent in a bank account. But how reliable is that?
No, it's been skimmed over, you can get a withdrawal.
It depends on how separate you keep everything.
There you go. That's the right answer. How clean is it? Right? If it's truly a business account and you're spending money like I'm going to Alpha Graphics and generating this level of whatever that I need to produce for a transaction, right? That's pretty clean. Okay. If I'm going to the grocery store and I bought 97 different things and I think it's all part of my business expense, I'm going to have to sort of figure out what goes where. Right?
also you need to leave notes under, I have to go in each month or each week and note what it was for,
Yeah,
or, you know. Maybe he's asking.
right, exactly, yep. So, anybody here just hold on to receipts and just put them somewhere and then look at them later? Justin? Sometimes we do that, right? Old school ledger, sometimes people just literally have a place where they write this stuff down. They just keep track of it. What other ideas does anybody have for tracking expenses? Right? What kind of software?
You know me, I use RealtyZen, we'll talk about it all night and day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
It generates a P&L at the end of the year, as long as you've got all of your expenses categorized.
Oh, cheater.
You can
I love
put in
that,
all-
yeah.
you put in your transactions, you put in the house, the paid on cost, the price, your splits and everything, and
Yeah.
it does all the math for you.
Okay.
And I literally, when it's RealtyZen, would you guys like my?
And it has a spot for tracking expenses?
Yeah, it's handy dandy.
There you go.
Talk about it all day,
I love that.
every time. I have a referral code.
We're gonna take a commercial break.
Yep. Bam. I think is what they have it set up as, but it's got an app and then my referral code, if you do decide to do it, is 22816.
So I think it's $100 for everybody who joins.
I get $10, it's $50 a month. And it does it all for you. You
That's
can
awesome.
connect a specific bank account for all of your expenses and then it'll automatically pull you, just make sure they're categorized correctly.
I love that. I love that.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
It also
Okay.
has a CRM function, but we don't need that.
Thank you. For not trying to oversell. Okay, so I want everybody to write down a few expenses that they have on their spreadsheet, okay? So go into the expense section there, write down a few different expenses that you have, and just go ahead and total those up. Maybe some of you have already done that. Okay, so we're gonna do some math now, which is we're gonna add those expenses up, make sure you've got that total. And then the math that we're gonna do here is we're gonna take our gross profit number that we already calculated. And we're gonna subtract our expenses from that. Okay, and on the line that says business profit, you should now have a number that you can put there. So by definition now, our business profit is our income minus our cost of sales and minus our expenses. Right? We're at our business profit. Now, there's a line that we're talking about here that we're calling business profit, which is a reflection of all of the activities of your business. But after business profit, there are some other sources of income and expenses that you may be responsible. Okay, so we're going to talk about those for just a minute. There's a category called other income. Okay. So what is other income? I've got two ideas here. Profit share you might be earning, right? Which is not necessarily part of your transactions that you close. So it's not generated through the commission that you're being paid. It's coming from another source, but it's related to your business. Right? Another one would be interest. You might have money sitting in business accounts and they're paying out a certain amount of interest. Okay. What other ideas? Cleaning business. Sorry? A cleaning business. A cleaning business, so an affiliated business of some kind?
I would argue you would want to have a separate account
Probably.
for that.
Mhm.
You could pull that in as a total so that you're really looking at your full income, but from a accounting standpoint, your accountant's gonna want to see those as separate businesses.
sometimes it depends what the company that you're tracking is sort of responsible for. So if you have a parent organization that your other companies are sort of reporting under, if that makes sense, you might ultimately have a P&L that has all of that factored into. But that's right.
This is not us giving tax advice. You should speak to your tax accountant.
Yes, correct.
This is just us giving some friendly information.
Any other
That may
sources
make
of other
me-
income you guys can think of?
What if you're a shareholder in this or Unity, you get dividends?
Yeah, depending on how you report that. So
Yeah,
kind of the same
yeah,
thing that's,
Good question. Yeah, that's probably exactly right. Probably a tax consultant.
so
be
how
best to
I,
talk to.
so like if you own that company in, like I own that as part of Rusty Results LLC, which encompasses all of my real estate activities.
Right.
That's part of that. So you're exactly right, Ken. That would be other income in that case.
That's how I do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you owned that as an individual, then that would be individual income,
Yeah.
not company income.
Yeah.
And you would want to strategize with your tax advisor and find out what's gonna be the best way for you to do that.
Okay, and so then there's one other bucket that we want to look at, which is actually other expenses. Okay, so examples of other expenses, the dreaded income tax. Right? So this is where you're gonna actually indicate, okay, yeah, I've got my business activities, that's my business profit line, right? But now sort of below that line, there's additional responsibilities that I have. Which is I've got to pay my taxes. And then continuing to sort of move through the math. You're gonna take your business profit, you're gonna add your other income to it, you're gonna subtract your other expenses, and now finally, we're at a net income. So hopefully for everybody, just because this is how the math works, your net income is a smaller number than your total income.
Mhm.
That would be the first thing to make sure that you've done the math right. But hopefully it's not too much smaller, right? So I want to talk a little bit about understanding what these numbers tell you, because now we know the math, we know sort of how this works. But what's the point of this? Why am I doing this, right? So really what we have is we've got performance metrics, and I want to just talk about those for a minute. And the question becomes, how do I know if my business is healthy? Right? So one of the things that I think is important to understand is the concept of percentages. And a percentage tells you the relationship between two numbers. Right? A percentage is a reflection of the relationship between two numbers. Okay? Now I haven't necessarily, some of you may have already calculated it. I haven't necessarily asked you yet to do the math on these percent of income. But basically, if you were to go in and you were to do the math, you could go, for example, cost of sales and gross profit as a percent of income. Okay? So if you have cost of sales of $15,000 and $3,000, you're going to have a $32,000 gross profit. Then you could look at that and say my cost of sales were $18,000 or 36% of my gross commission income. So of all my money I'm taking in, if I earned 50,000, which is capping level, right? Of all my money that I'm taking in, I'm paying 36% of it out in cost of sales. My gross profit then becomes 32,000 or 64% of my gross commission income. Okay, so now you've got the relationship between these numbers. What about your expenses as a percent of your gross commission income? So Tim threw out a number. Tim, what was your number earlier that you said MREA teaches? 30%, right? Is that true of just a $50,000 gross commission income? It's not, right? Okay, that's more of a highly leveraged agent, okay? In a world where you're building your business, those numbers might look quite different than what you see in the MREA, okay? So in this case, I put $8,000 in expenses. I don't know, maybe these numbers are way off. I put 4,000 in lead gen. That may be overshooting it, I don't know. 1,000 in technology, 1,000 in supplies, and 2,000 in education. Do any of those sound reasonable? Probably not too far off, right? Okay, so $8,000 in expenses on $50,000 of income. Just do that twice. So my expenses are the 16% of my gross commission income. And now we've gone down to the business profit line, right? So my business profit is $24,000 because I've backed my cost of sales out and my expenses. I'm at $24,000. You can see I've got a 48%. My business profit is 48% of my gross commission income. Okay, so these relationships matter because they're indicators of the health of your business. Okay, if you made $50,000 and now you're down here on your business profit line and you've got $10,000 left over, what can you assume? Right? You're overspending. Now what do I do if I think I'm overspending? Where do I go with that?
Go to Dalton's class and sell more homes.
Okay,
Your expenses
So-
cut back.
so probably my first reaction, Todd, that's perfect, right? My first reaction is probably gonna be like, oh my gosh, I better take a look at these because these are sort of fixed. Those aren't gonna change. My cost of sales aren't gonna exceed that. So I probably better look at my expenses and see where in the world I'm overspending, right? So here's the scenario. Let me get to the right
It's
page.
interesting enough to that 50,000 in GCI is only 4 transactions based upon that person's.
Yep. But you can also see with this, and some of you, if you've never done this, might be looking at this going, oh my gosh, really? Really? That's how fast the money goes? Yeah,
So nobody gets sad. 50 grand, that's only make that. If that's only 4 or 5 houses,
right,
yeah, you can easily do twice.
right. So you're basically looking at a business profit percent of 48%. Now, I did not reflect on here the other income and the other expenses, okay? But keep in mind that there's the next 2 lines to get down to your net income. So let's look at the MREA model right here. This is the MREA model. So this is a millionaire agent, how the MREA teaches how these numbers should be set up, right? So they're suggesting that an MREA or that a millionaire real estate agent is going to need to generate $2.4 million in gross commission income. Okay, some of you might be gulping right now, but you know, this is the model and how it's laid out. They're saying $700,000 in cost of sales. Now that's way more than the $18,000 that we talked about. Where's that coming from?
Yeah, so at this point, you
Salaries.
should have salaries, team members, that kind of stuff.
Correct. Correct. So at this point, you've actually hired out people who are helping you generate those transactions and you're paying them their own splits out of your commissions that are being generated. That leaves you $1.7 million in gross profit, or basically 70.8%, but there's another $700,000 in expenses. Right? And that's how you get to your $1 million in bonus or in business profit. Okay, which is 41.7%. So look at these differences right here. Would anybody be happy with $1 million in business profit? Probably, right? That's 41.7%. 24,000, that's 48%. Do we like the higher percent or the higher number? So it depends, right? All of this has to be sort of evaluated in terms of the overall health of your particular situation. Okay, we can give you numbers like this all day long and say, oh, you've got to have X% here, you've got to have this, you've got to have that. But it really depends on your particular situation. Are there people, Rusty, are there people in this business that generate $1 million in business profit that don't spend that much in cost of sales?
Sure. There's also people who spend way more than that in cost of
right.
sales and expenses, which is what we see more often in a larger team.
Right.
We often see expenses way beyond the 30%. So a lot of times in a large team setting, like this 30-30-40 model is really set up for a larger team type model.
That's correct.
And so this really got implemented. One of the things that if you ever are on stage with Gary Keller at Mega Camp or Family Reunion, he'll actually ask for your P&L and he'll look to make sure that these numbers are in alignment. Because there was teams that were doing massive numbers, but also spending massive amounts
Right.
of money.
Right.
And so their business profit at the end of the day was closer to like, 20% profit and, 80% cost of selling expenses.
So when I first started here, there was a team that I knew quite well. They're not a team that I don't know that any of you would have known them or at least interacted with them at the time, but there was a team and at a point in time, I found out that they were spending tens of thousands of dollars a month in lead generation. How does that make you guys feel just hearing that? Like, I see you all shaking your heads like, holy crap, So
It depends on the return.
Yeah.
It depends on the return.
Yeah, I was gonna
Look,
say, the
if
difference
10's
was their return
If,
wasn't,
if 10 in equals 50 out, I'm in all day.
So exactly. And how do you know if that's gonna happen,
Probably go to your P&L.
right? Was that scenario right for them? They seemed like they were doing pretty well.
it was right for them when they had people that could convert those leads.
Yep.
So
You
if
know-
you're spending,
Yeah.
if you're spending $50,000 a month on leads, you need to figure out how you're getting that return on your investment. Because if you're spending $50,000 a month and 2 people can convert on your team, or if you're spending that for yourself and you're converting 2 transactions out of that $50,000 spend a month.
Yeah.
That is not a good,
Probably not a right,
Expense.
probably not a good point,
not a good return on your investment. So you have
Right.
to understand what that looks like.
right? That's where your business profit number starts looking pretty drab. Right? So the scenario has to be evaluated based on your own personal objectives, goals, circumstances, what you want out of the business, okay? But if you ever feel like you're spinning your wheels on things, it's really worthwhile to go in and take a hard look at these relationships and these numbers. Again, those percentages tell a story, okay? I want to end just with a brief conversation around what levers you can manage. Okay, when I say what levers can you manage, what do I mean?
How can you control it?
How can you control it? What do you guys think? How can you influence your P&L?
Make more money.
Lower your expenses.
Lower your expenses.
Okay, so you can make more money. So what does making more money do on a P&L statement? Okay, so your income goes up. What happens to your cost of sales and your expense percentages?
It depends.
So the expense depends.
Well, it depends. Cost of sales may not go up. So it depends where you are in your personal situation, right? So if I'm an agent that's closing 15 deals and I want to close 20 deals, then I'm asking myself a question. Is it time for me to leverage? Right? Do I need to leverage at this point? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not attempting to answer that question. Maybe, maybe not. But if I can figure out when I'm doing 15 deals, how to leverage my own energy and my own effort and get to 20 transactions, right? What happens to your cost of sales in that scenario?
Your percentage would actually likely go down.
They would go down. Because your cost of sales, you're gonna have long since capped. You're not spending any more money in terms of what you're paying to the market center. So your income is going up with your cost of sales not changing at that.
Or changing very little.
Or changing very
transaction
little.
coordination.
Right. Your expenses are fixed. So they're not necessarily going up. They might go up a little bit in dollar increments, but as a percentage of your income, way down, right? Okay. So if you want to leverage some of these numbers, one way to do it obviously is figure out how to drive more income with a similar cost structure. Okay, that's all about efficiency, skill set, strategies, right?
Can I give an idea of what that is?
Yeah, please.
Conversations,
Conversations,
that's it.
more
Your
conversations.
database Conversations.
Yeah.
In your mouth.
I mean, sure, and that will make your cost of sales go up, but is your cost of sales gonna go up as fast as your income? It's
No,
not,
because at
right?
that point, you're increasing your cost of sell between 300 and 500 per transaction. But again, your biggest
But
cost.
your
of
commission
sales
is coming in. Yeah,
You're freeing up time.
right. Right. So individual strategies, individual circumstances all matter in this, right? But in general terms, if you can find a scenario that holds your cost of sales relatively the same, relatively flat, and your expenses, and you're adding to that income, those cost of sales and expense numbers go down as a percentage in their relationship to income. And your business profit and ultimately your net income percentages sky. Right? And that's what you want. You want those to go up. What happens if I try to expense my way to profit?
Bankruptcy.
Depends again, but you certainly can cut off your nose to spite your face, right? I
It
mean,
depends on what you're spending on.
Right, right. So if you are running a business where you're relying on a certain amount of expense that is promoting you and generating business, and you decide, I can't afford that, so I'm gonna go ahead and just cut that. What just happened now to your leads? What just happened to the business that you're generating? Yeah, you cut your expenses, but you also cut off the flow of leads of business, right? I can't close as many deals. So again, individual circumstances, you're gonna have to make judgment calls on what makes the most sense for you.
This is where red light, green light with your expenses is so critical.
Yep.
Going through every line of what you spent and saying, did this bring me a return on the investment? Did this bring me a return on the investment? I had anticipated this would bring a return on investment of this. Am I actually getting that return on investment? Do you care if I give some numbers for an individual agent?
Not at all, please do. Please do.
So that 30-30-40 model is really based on more of a team structure. So if you're an individual agent, I think what's a little bit healthier for an individual agent is more of about a 15 to 20% cost of sale. And then again, it would be a 15 to 10% expense with a 70% business profit. If you're in growth mode, that's usually going to be pretty true for about 100 to 150, maybe even 200,000 in gross commission income. That should really be your expenses and cost of sales should equate between about 30 and 40%. And then that's going to get a little higher is when you start to look at that and say, how do I need to leverage? And that's going to be an expense form, not cost of sale. Most of the time that's going to be, do I need to hire an administrative person? Do I need to hire a VA to manage some of these things? That's going to bring in, it's going to add some expense, but it should free up time. Time should allow you to create more income. So you should start to shift when you're hitting a number where you're like, okay, yes, I'm at 150. I'll just use that number because I think that sits in that 70 realm pretty easy. You're making about 150,000, but you're struggling to move beyond that in income because of all the other pieces that are bogging down and taking your time away. That's when you need to start thinking leverage, and you're spending wisely, because even though your expense percent will likely go up at that point, is it freeing you to make more additional money in a way that makes more sense for you, freeing up time, energy to either go create more money, or guess what? Maybe it's not even about creating more money. It's about creating freedom of time. So as an individual agent, you should really see, to me, a healthy business is between 30 and 40% cost of sales and expense combined, with a 60 to 70% business profit should be pretty healthy income at that point.
Love that.
Now there's times when that 30, 30, 40, as your team is growing, you may be even a little out of whack with that, right? You may say there's some critical pieces I've got to put in place, which is going to be more expenses over the next 12 to 18 months. And now you're going to be a little out of whack. You're going to be like, you know what? My expenses are actually 40%, but you're making that decision based on these are the lever pieces that I have to get into play now to then end up in that healthier model. So anytime you're making a decision, and if you're stuck or you're having a hard time thinking about it, you really need to go through and play that red light, green light. Is this an expense that's going to bring a return? And know the long game. Is it going to bring a return today?
Yep.
You hire an administrative person, you may not see a return in that for 6 months. It's going to take some time for them to get up and running, but they should be able to pay for themselves within 90 days pretty easily. If you're 3 years in and you're paying an administrative person, but your income hasn't increased, you've got the wrong hire. So I think you just need to look at everything you're doing and say, if I'm spending this expense now, when will I see that return? And then budget and plan for that. So you may have a year where your expenses and cost of sale are more 50%, your income's 50/50 as and your business profits 50% as an individual agent. But you're looking at that as I'm setting some foundational pieces because I expect it's an investment for the long term. I expect my gross commission is going to go up next year, which is going to put me more in alignment with that 60/40 or whatever. So just as you're thinking through those things, these are just some guidelines to say, am I at least in a healthy realm with my business? If your expenses are equaling more than or equal to what you're making, you're doing something wrong. You need to take a look at where you're spending.
I think the first, if I were owning a business and looking at this kind of a scenario, if I were in one of your seats, I might look at, well, let's start just with a very basic P&L. Let's get it sort of mapped out first. Okay. Now that I sort of understand, now I'm really going to start peeling the layers back on my expenses. And I'm going to start thinking about the conversation of leverage. Leverage is one of the hardest. I mean, if you read the MREA, leverage is one of the hardest decisions. The timing of and the who is a very, very tough decision to make within the real estate agent world. But it's also crucial because you can certainly cap out your productivity if you don't leverage at the right time. So.
And looking at what you're spending in leverage, it's important to say by me hiring this or implementing this piece of leverage, how many additional transactions must I generate with that leveraged piece for it to pay for itself?
Yeah, to pay for it.
Right, so you've got to think about that.
So I'm going to end on this really quick. First of all, any questions, anything we haven't addressed? Okay, hopefully everybody has a really healthy P&L sitting in front of them. They're just going to go home really happy with your numbers. I happen to have a very basic, simple spreadsheet that literally uses the exact terminology and fields that we taught here today. Okay, in fact, this is literally based 100% on the spreadsheet that I have access to. Okay, anybody who would like that, please schedule some time with me or just come in, and I'll be happy to share that with you and go through that with you in detail. So, you guys should just. I mean, I'm happy to just send it to anybody, but I also really like the idea of sitting down and just talking through it a little bit. There's a few inputs and things you sort of need to understand. So anyway,
So
any other
schedule
questions?
one-on-one with Chris.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Was that helpful?
Yeah.
Hey, awesome. Schedule your appointment with Chris if you want access to talk through the spreadsheet he has. There's a lot of different examples of this. The one that's gonna work the best is which one? The one you're gonna actually use. So if you're a spreadsheet guy, get with Chris. If you want QuickBooks, use QuickBooks. If you want the app, get with Jesse. If you're a bank account gal, do whatever works for you. Just the one thing I'm gonna say, if you're using your bank accounts more like a P&L and you're not actually downloading it and looking at it in a different format, be really cautious that you're not mingling funds. Okay, so be really aware of that. Fun little IRS fact, if you have a business account and a personal account, but you're mingling funds all the time, in the event that you get audited, it's going to open up all of it, not just your business. Fun fact. So anyway, thank you so much for being here today. We did not have a sponsor for today's meeting because they told us yesterday they're out of town. So thanks KW Success for a delicious lunch today. Also, if you can remind you, if you guys have a vendor or somebody that you work with that you love working with them and think outside the box. Mikhail brought us the flooring guy a couple weeks ago, flooring, insurance, whatever it is. If you have a vendor that you enjoy working with and they want to get in front of a group of agents, have them reach out to Vinci because we have actually had quite a few cancellations lately. I think vendors are feeling a little bit of a pinch and we're getting a lot of last minute cancellations. So we rely a lot on your recommendations too, just like with a real estate transaction. If somebody gives you a warm lead, it's easy to say, hey, Christy said that you did the cabinets in her house and you did a fantastic job. And would you be interested in coming and getting in front of, 20 to 50 agents at any given time? So anyway, thanks guys. Have a great day. Thanks. Healthy.
Warm it up.